All right, and we're back, and it's COMP123, lesson 10, week 10, part 5, right? And we did a bunch of stuff in the first part with this new image. And what I want to do here, because I've given you hints of what I want to do, I want to make a little image carousel, but I want to go next and back, right? So let's just make this next. I'm going to move this next button over here, so it kind of aligns with this thing here. And I want to copy paste, so Control C, Control V, right, to create another button with the same styling. This is really cool when you have it's exactly the same styling, the same font and everything else, right? Except for next, I'm going to make this the back button. So I'm going to go back to properties. All I've done is copy it. I'm going to go back. I'm going to need the Spanish back in a second too, for a second. You'll see what when we're going to do this, right? And here in my button, I'm going to call it, of course, the back button, right? Because it's a different button than the next button. Okay, I've got my back button, and I've got this. I'm going to double-click my back button, and it's going to create another event handler. I need one event handler per control, right? So here's my event handler for my back button, right? And this is the click event. And for my back button, I want to do kind of the same thing, except I want to go the other way, right? So I'm going to grab this whole thing here, right? And we're going to redo it and see if it makes any sense to you. Okay, cool. Here's my same thing, but I don't want to go forward, right? I want to start at 0, and I want to go minus, minus, right? So I want to go minus, minus. I want to go back. If the image index is what? Well, if it's greater than 0, right? If it's greater than 0, I want to go minus, minus, right? If it's else, right? Well, here's a problem. If it's not greater than 0, then I want my image index to be my array length, which is this image array, right? My array length, but it can't be that. I'll put up in a second, Neil. My array length, it can't be this because my array length is 3, so it can't be 3 because 3 is not an index, minus 1, right? So what I'm doing is cycling the other way now. I went up this way to the right, and now I'm going to go down this way to the left, right? If my image index is greater than 0. If it's less than 0, anything else, then I'm going to reset my array, my image index to something else. And again, the image index, I'm keeping it as a private variable for my class. And I'm starting it off at 0, right? So it's the first image. Okay, let's try this out. So I'm going to kind of start off, and I go front, front, front. I go through the cycle, and then I go back, 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 and I back through, and I've got total control of my little gallery, right? So you create a gallery for yourself. Make sense? So again, we're using the same kind of concepts as we would on a web form, right? We're trying to use the same kind of things here in C#. Everything is possible when you put your mind to it. My concern is what you said before, which is, what if I have 50 images? What if I have 100 images? How can I load the images from my resources? And we'll talk about that another time, right? Because there's the other additional things to do there, right? Okay, cool. I want to change my internationalization now. So what is the name, or how do I spell? Let me go back to my resources here. I'm going to go back to, instead of my resources, and by the way, I got this again for those people who forgot this little view. I got this by going to project properties, and then I hit resources on the tab bar here on the left. And then in resources, you can choose images, strings, icons, whatever you want, right? So now I'm going to go back to strings. And I've got my next button string English, my next button string Spanish. I'm going to create a couple more. So I'm going to say my back button string English. Well, that's just back, right? English back button. And my back button string for Spanish as another resource. And it's going to be called T. Atrás. Thank you. So, and of course, this is the Spanish back button. Okay, Spanish back button. Got my forward, next, and back, right? And this takes me forward and back. Now, it's very interesting. How do I saved everything, by the way. How do I program this in? Well, I need something up here to do that. So, of course, we learned some of these things before. We'll end up like this today. I'm going to just pin this back up. And I'm going to kind of put together a container. This makes sense, right? I'm going to close this little common controls up. I need to put a group box. I want to put a group box in here, right? And maybe at the top here, make the group box so it's the same size as my, just from a nice design perspective. Why not, right? And my group box I've got to rename as part of our best practices to something like, you know, a language group box, right? Here's my language group box. Up type here where it says group box 1, I got to change the text property of my group box instead of group box 1 to select language. So I can make it kind of put, you know, show that up there. Select language, right? And what I want to do, and by the way, now might be the time for me to switch up my name of my form. My form right now is called new form. Maybe what I want to call this is like a, you know, kind of a gallery form, right? Or an image gallery form or gallery form. So gallery form sounds good to me. So I'm going to rename my form. So I'm going to go back to where it says new form, right click, and go rename, and call this capital G gallery form. Gallery form. It's going to ask me if I want to rename this thing. I'm going to say yes. All right, so now it's called gallery form that I'm making. And what I want to do here, instead of this new form up here, is I want to kind of say something like, sorry, I'm going to click on this again, my form, properties. I want to say, instead of new form, it's going to be called image gallery. Uh-oh. Image gallery makes no sense to Spanish people, right? They don't know what that is. So it means that I want to change my text property of my form as well to accommodate, you know, the Spanish language, right? Which means I need to do prep work. I got to go back to my resources, and I got to choose another thing. So I'm going to say my, and this is my title bar, right? Title bar string. Every time I'm teaching, it's got to be title bar string English, right? Is going to be, of course, image gallery. Right, and that's the English title bar. And now my title bar string Spanish is going to be my G. Actually, why don't you come over here and type it in? It's just faster. By the time you call it out, and then the people who are watching the video are going to go crazy, right? So might as well come in, and we're going to have a lovely Spanish expert just type it in.
Thank you, thank you.
And how lovely she is this morning. For the people who didn't make it, too bad. Thank you. All right, so this is the Spanish title bar, right? Okay, cool. So we got kind of our internationalization, our localization, if you will, that's here, right? And I'm leaving it up there so you guys can see. That's pretty big, eh? So I wonder if it's going to get cut off with our 320 by 480, right? What are you guys laughing at? She's crazy? She's doing some crazy stuff? All right. Are we good? You guys all got this one? Or if you can all read it, it's Galeria de, how do you say it? Imagenes. There we go. Okay, I'm a Greek guy. I'm not a Spanish guy, so it's hard for me, right? All right, so so here's what we've changed. We've got all these strings in place for our internationalization, localization, call it whatever you like, right? And now what we're going to do is we're going to, when we click the buttons, all this cascade of strings are going to change, right? I think how am I going to do this now? Right? I've got all my strings, and how am I going to set this up? This almost requires another array, right? Oh, these darn arrays, they don't go away. Go away, these darn arrays. What's going on here? Let's go back. So I'm going to go back to my gallery form. And I got to picture this first. I'm going to go, first let's code my UI. First part. I got my container. I go to my common controls now. And I'm going to pull in some radio buttons, right? So this is a good example of a radio button, just like it would be on your little assignment. So here's radio button 1. I'm just going to pull that in a little bit so that it kind of shows. I'm going to pull in radio button 2 in as well. Right, here's radio button 2, maybe a little bit towards the middle, roughly like that. Again, the design, if you were actually following a design document, it would tell you exactly where to put everything. Let me make sure that they're a little bit, they're not really kind of centered. Now they are. Okay. So radio button 1, I need to change the properties of that. I'm going to change radio button 1 to English radio button, right? No spaces, of course. And I also want to make this English radio button start off as checked, because that's the default, right? Because we live in Canada and our main language is English, right? Let's say as an example. So my radio button checked, and I want to just change this right now to English. Now, I'm not going to make so that this one says Spanish, it's going to say Español, right? Which makes more sense, right? So this is our, even though we're going to call this in code for us because we're English speakers, we're going to call this Spanish radio button, right? And now help me with the spelling. E-S. N-O-L, like this. I know I don't have the funny caret. I apologize. And again, I could probably access the do you? I don't know if I can access it here in my text. I'd have to set this up properly. Do this right. You'd have to set this up when the form loads programmatically. So set that the radio button so it actually says the right word. Can't do it here in text because this is just local, right? So it doesn't give me an option to do anything here, right? So this isn't the right way to set it up. So to say the right stuff here. Okay. So it's unchecked. I want to go to Spanish or Español, right? And when I click this button, the idea is when I checked Español, all these, my form, and even this thing, select language, that's got to change too, huh? Right? Because I forgot this piece. The select language, it's got to change, right? Let's change that too. Sorry, I know it's long-winded, but we're going to do, this is the last thing we're going to do because it's the most complicated piece. Okay, so we're going to say it's the group box, right? So we're going to say group box Spanish, English, and the English version of the group box is, I think it's select language. Is that what I put in? Select language. You're going to have to come over here again. Well, it doesn't make any sense for me to ask you, how to select language. Select language, and we're going to make the group box Spanish, and go ahead, select language. Look how big that is, man. That's going to be huge. Yeah. Thank you. Let's see if it works. Okay, cool. And this is, thank you very much for that again. And we're going to say the English group box, and this is the Spanish group box. You might say this is pretty tedious, but you know what? On Android and iOS devices, when you do any kind of programming on mobile devices, right? When you do any programming nowadays, it's a requirement of the different places you live. Like in Canada, we have to create English and French, and in the States especially, it's in some places English and Spanish, and some places it's English, Spanish, and French, depending on where you are. So 3 options. If you want to sell your product, then you use different ways of doing this thing where you have other things like German, and whatever languages you support, you would translate in here for every control you got going on. Right? There's no automatic translation. You got to do it on your own. Which makes sense because it's like, it's trying to get this going. Okay, so now we've got everything. So I have my button, my next button, my back button, my title bar, and my group box. And I have different versions of this stuff. Okay. Here's a question for you. On the coding side, when I click my English button, let's do the English one first. So I double click on my English button. It creates my English radio button event handler. So here's my English radio button handler. And it's the check change event. Checked changed event, right? That's what this is. And of course I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to make the other one really quickly by going back here and double clicking on this, the Spanish one, right? And I'll just do the same thing by copying and pasting, right? Okay, cool. How do you propose to change stuff from one to the other? The simplest way. Yes, I can make an array. There's not that many controls, right? What's the way to do it? I could make an array at the top like we did before, right? We know how many there are, right? And they're up here. So I can make an array instead of bitmaps, right? What kind of resources are is what we're looking for? Well, I'm guessing it's a string, right? That's my guess. So let's try that out. So let's make a underneath this part here. I'm going to make another array. I call it private. Instead of a bitmap, it's going to be a string. I'm going to call this a underscore. You know, we'll call it the English array. Why not? Right? And we'll equal to all the properties that we want. So we'll say property blah 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 blah. But here's the problem. How do we know which one we're pointing to? And why would I create an array? I'm just putting it out there before you start typing more stuff, right? Why would I use an array for such limited properties? You know what I'm saying? I only have 4 things I'm going to change. And they're all going to be unique. And I have no rhyme or reason for how they appear on the screen, right? It's not like I know that my title bar is 0. I have to have a schema, right? My title bar would be 0 for the index, right? I have to have a number 1 for my index would be something else. It would be the group box. 2 would be my both of my radio buttons, right? My radio buttons would change. Oh, hey, I missed a radio button. Oh man, I'm bad now. I missed another thing too. There's a couple more I've changed radio buttons too. It can't say English anymore when I go to Spanish. It's got to say the English version of Spanish, right? How to say English in Spanish. That's got to change too. Right? These are all the considerations, right? So this doesn't make any sense. I don't have that many. I mean, if you look at my design, these are all the objects I have. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not going to change this. 5, 6 different objects. I have 6 objects to run through. I could go 0 to 6, 0 to 6, and change them all, right? And it doesn't matter. But then I'd have to set up my objects in order. Yeah.
So for changing the language, why can't you like make a method where it has all the language components and Spanish language components, and call that method once you click on the Spanish radio button?
I could. So you say Spanish language, switch to Spanish. I got English. English.
Click onto the Spanish, everything will change, all the language.
But I got to choose which ones. I got to choose which ones map to which ones. That's what I'm trying to tell you, right? I got to actually do a hard coding. Let's do that one this time around. Next time when we meet again, I'm going to propose another way of doing it more dynamically, like you're thinking. So the easiest way to do it, and we'll add a couple more, okay, for English and Spanish. For example, I have my English radio button and my Spanish radio button. I got to make those too. So let's do those. There's 4 more strings I got to add, right? Let's see what I'm talking about here. So if I go back to my resources, I've got my English radio button in English, right? That's just going to say English, right? And the English radio button. And I have my English radio button in Spanish. English radio button in Spanish. And what is that again? A or I? I? Yeah? Yeah? Right? And that's my English radio button in Spanish. right? Because my English radio button's got to change when I swap out my stuff. This is in English, right? And now I've got to do my Spanish radio button in English, right? Which would be, right? Spanish radio button in English. And this is my English radio button, it's my Spanish radio button in Spanish, which would be actually it'd be the same, wouldn't it? So maybe we'll do this is this would be Spanish, and this would be and this would be Espanol, right? Sorry, I switched my way of doing things. Spanish radio button in Spanish. Now, here's the question. Even though it says Spanish radio button in English, right? I spelled it right. I would have my Spanish radio button in English be on the Spanish side, not on the English side. So in Spanish, when you say Spanish, we say English, right? Not Inglés, right? It's one aspect. Or the other one, I was going to put both. Everything is English, and when it goes to Spanish, everything is Spanish. And I think I like that better. So everything is Spanish, everything is English, as opposed to the way we've done it right now. So go back to our design. See how the design change we're making? So my design, instead of putting Espanol here, we should make it so that it says Spanish. I know, a lot of changes, eh? And then when we click the button, it switches. Okay, so the easy way to do it, of course, I'm going to save all of my resources now for a second. I'm going to go back to my form, and I'm going to get rid of this thing because I don't need this array. The easiest way to do it is inside my buttons, right? Nice and easy. I'm going to start coding it one time, and then I'll do the other one the other time. So the first one I'm going to start off with is the title bar. And the title bar is my form's title. So I can't do, remember we talked about the form, right? And last day it was the active form. So I go to active form, right? Active form dot text, right? Is equal to the English language text. So properties dot resources dot, and then it's the English language form of the title bar English, right? And we're going to do, the next one is going to be the group box, right? So, which is called, what group box is it? Group box. What did I name it again? Language group box? The language group box is equal to properties dot resources dot, and the name of it, the group box in Spanish, or in English, right? Here it is. And bear with me. And now here's the radio buttons, right? Oh, sorry. Dot text. Change the text values for these things. And then the English radio button dot text is equal to properties dot resources dot the English radio button in English, right? Sorry, it just cut off because of the size of my screen, right? And then I'm going to do the Spanish radio button dot text is equal to the properties dot resources dot Spanish radio button in English, because that's what we've chosen to do, right? And then the next piece is the next button dot text is equal to properties. You know what you see what I'm getting at, right? Dot resources dot next button in English, and then I'm gonna do the back button last. Back button dot text equals to properties. There's a better way to do this, by the way. Resources dot back button string English. Whew. Huh? I want to do that with you guys one time so you understand. Okay, now let's copy and paste all that to the other side, because I'm not going to copy that crap again, right? All this, copy. This is the easy way to do it. It's also the ugly way, right? And instead of English, I'm going to type Spanish, because I know that's my format to do, so I know this would work, right? I'm going to copy and paste just the word Spanish here, copy, and replace the whole, just the last part. Spanish, Spanish. That's the way to do it, right? Now the second part is easier to do. Once we've done it one time, unless you make a mistake like that, I meant this, and this. Oops, almost done. I know it's like watching paint peel, guys, but we're almost done. We're almost on time, too. Can you believe it? All right, and now when I run this thing, what challenges, eh? When I run this thing and I click Spanish, everything changes. When I go back to English, everything changes. And I go Spanish, everything changes again. Huh? What do you think? And everything works. I can go back, I can go forward, and we're good to go. I will update GitHub in a second. Right? Any questions around this stuff? So we covered a bunch of stuff today. Just as a review, we covered internationalization, right? We covered how to access the resources of our project for both images and strings. There's also icons we didn't access yet. So here's my my Team Explorer, and we talked about a couple of controls we need for our assignment 6, which is our radio buttons, our picture box actually, and we also talked about the internationalization piece. So think about now you're just changing it for French, right? Yeah, you can use Google, it's okay, even if it's not right, doesn't matter. As long as it sounds French, you're good to go. All right, and of course I'm going to say added internationalization, strings to resources. Okay, commit, home, unsync commits, sync, and now you have everything that I have. So that's it for me today. Next week we're going to do a review on this day, right? On Tuesday, right? Would be the at 10:30 when we meet next week, or sorry, 12:30. Be 12:30. 12:30 on Tuesday next week when we meet, right? We'll be doing our review for the exam, or sorry, test that we're going to do the next day, which is just going to be all this stuff again, right? Hopefully by then you've already started assignment 6, so you have practice doing this kind of stuff, because I'm going to make you do something with the exam that has to do with building a form, right? So you need to be comfortable building forms on the next test, not the exam, right? Questions around this? The Wednesday test, we're going to do a form test, right? The form. So we're going to do the review on the Tuesday, and the Wednesday we're going to do the actual test, the practical test. Okay. Any questions? All right. See you next week.